Coach Green, who was one of my favorite coaches I ever played for, brought me in and nowadays would never even think of it. Like, he kept 4 quarterbacks on the roster for 2 years, and I was the 4th quarterback.
Sure.
And nowadays, I mean, they keep 2 and maybe 1 practice squad guy. So, I was pretty lucky and pretty blessed in that area.
Yep.
This is the Buffalo Community Podcast, all about the greatest small town in the USA, the people in it, and how it all works together. Here are your hosts, Tyler Reese and Mark Benzer.
Welcome back, everybody. Excited to have with us a guest that early on in the podcast process, I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could get Todd Bouman in here and pick his brain, have him tell his story a little bit, and it happened. So we're very, very thankful that you took some time to come in, chat with us, answer our questions, and hopefully people can get to know you a little better and your story. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm just a little disappointed. You said that I was one of the first ones you thought you'd like to have, but I feel like I'm down the list since I've gotten in here.
Well, here's the deal.
Mark gets really nervous.
Production has ramped up quite a bit. Like, we haven't always had this cool spotlight or all these cool cameras. And so we wanted to be at a certain level of excellence before
Spoken
we
like a
made the
true
phone
NFL
call.
GM right there, just backtracking.
Yeah.
Totally full of crap.
Yeah.
So, former NFL Viking, NFL quarterback. Let's get back in the DeLorean and kind of just bring it. What's that experience like growing up in Minnesota and that whole process?
That's one of those things, I think, as a little kid, you always, dream of it, thinking that maybe it could happen. But when you grew up in a town of 300 on the farm, it's kind of a pipe dream, I guess. But I was lucky enough to go to college and play football and basketball. And, my last year or so, NFL scouts started coming in, and lo and behold, things kind of worked out.
Yeah. So you talk about growing up, small town Minnesota, Russell Tyler Ruth in high school. So you said, it's a pipe dream, right? Mm-hmm. You don't. Is it not until college and scouts start showing up where you're like, this NFL thing maybe isn't so far out of reach, or is it literally something you believe in the back of your mind? I can do this from a young age.
I think you believe it as a young age, and then there wasn't the whole camp series that there is now. But I think when you start seeing guys that you've maybe played against or been around and you watch them play, then you're like, you know what, I think I can do what that guy's doing. Mm-hmm. And then there's so many other things that go into it, being at the right place, getting the lucky breaks that you had. Coach Green, who was one of my favorite coaches I ever played for, brought me in and nowadays would never even think of it. Like, he kept 4 quarterbacks on the roster for 2 years, and I was the 4th quarterback.
Sure.
And nowadays, I mean, they keep 2 and maybe 1 practice squad guy. So, I was pretty lucky and pretty blessed in that area.
Yep. What is it? And this is impossible to answer, because if it had an answer, every GM would know it. But, you have guys coming out of college from prestigious schools, USC, LSU, all-time great quarterbacks in college, all-time great programs that are not in the league within 2 or 3 years. And then no slate to you or St. Cloud State. But then you have guys like you, undrafted, unknown relatively, and you make it 10-plus years. Like, how does that happen?
I think, like I said before, there's things that have to fall into place. You have to get lucky at times. Then you have to put in the work. You have to be. I always said in 13 years I was never late for one meeting, one lifting, because I knew if there was one time, like, I could be gone. Mm-hmm. And then also there's an aspect to it. I remember my rookie year, we went and scrimmaged the Saints down in lacrosse, I think it was back then.
Yeah.
And loved the guy to death. I think he was a good quarterback. But I remember Danny Werfel won the Heisman Trophy.
From Florida.
And we scrimmaged the Saints, and I remember watching him throw a deep comeback, and no disrespect, but it was like a big old lollipop. Mm-hmm. But then you look back at guys like that, you watch him play in college, and he's throwing to receivers that are open by 5-10 yards all the time.
Sure.
So, there's so many different aspects that go into it, but I think the other part of it is a guy that's undrafted, you scratch and you claw and you claw. I was telling my brother the other day, I think 6 of my 13 years, when the Grim Reaper, I would talk about the strength coach would walk through the locker room during training camp, and you're like, oh, here he comes, and he walks up, hey, Spencer, can you grab your playbook? Coach wants to see you. And
Great. Yeah, let's go. Coach.
No, that wasn't all you wanted. Feedback. No, but I was, you were nervous all the time because like that might be me, and then it was, finally when I got a chance to play and things went well, then you had that relaxed feeling. But I mean, you always, as a free agent, you were nervous.
The first time you got traded, you bounced around a couple things. How'd that meeting go? You said you're nervous. How'd that meeting go? Of hey, you're
That was just one of those things. At that time, I'd played a little bit, and Dante was their guy, and I wanted an opportunity to play. And New Orleans called because Aaron Brooks had just came off a shoulder surgery, and Jake Delhomme had just left New Orleans and went to Carolina. So it was one of those things that just worked out, and ended up going there for 3 years. And it was definitely a culture shock when I got to New Orleans, but me and my wife absolutely ended up loving it down there. I mean, Great people, great food. Loved everything about it, and it was just a situation that came up, and I was hoping for an opportunity, and Aaron came back, and he ended up being healthy the whole time until the whole Hurricane Katrina debacle. We ended up in San Antonio, and I got a chance to play at the end of that last year, but it was a good experience. Loved every minute of it.
Yeah. So it's basically 12 years of loving and
13.
living 13 of living out a living out a dream. NFL quarterback, but is it ever comfortable? I mean, is there ever anything comfortable about it? Or
no, there's never anything comfortable. And everybody always talks about, oh, you're the backup. I mean, the greatest job in the world, and it was. My wife loved it. She says you were always healthy and never really banged up, but you had to prepare every single week like you were going to start, because that one chance that all of a sudden the starter sprains his ankle and you go in and you're not prepared, like. That's it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I always think it was almost harder in some aspects because you had to be ready, and every time, that chance came, you had to go in there and perform.
Yeah. We'll maybe bouncing around a little bit, probably end up back talking NFL again, but personal life back on the farm. You said basketball, football, but also something that runs pretty deep in your family is fast pitch softball.
Fast pitch softball, yeah.
Why do you guys play fast pitch softball down there, and nobody else in the state plays fast pitch softball?
That is a great question. So the southwest corner of Minnesota and then South Dakota, Iowa, like fast pitch softball was huge when I was growing up. My dad played on a team in Holland, and they had a rotating league. I think there was like literally 16 teams in the league, and they played every Tuesday and Thursday night during the summer. And we just grew up playing. We had Little League and all of that stuff. We played baseball and fast pitch softball, and we just became to love it. My dad started a team, I think when I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, and kind of brought a bunch of kids from the surrounding area that we played against as youth and put a team together. And we ended up 1986. My oldest brother Shane and Troy were on the team, and we ended up winning the national tournament against teams from Salt Lake City, Utah, Arizona, Florida, everywhere. And, a little town of 300 people, and we ended up winning the national championship, and it just kind of turned into something we kept doing, and ended up winning 3 national championships, 2 at 18 under, and then 1 at 23 and under.
Do those tournaments still exist? I mean, no.
There's still a league in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but that's pretty much it. I mean, we used to go to like Vesta, Minnesota, a town of 400 people, and they would have a 22-team tournament on a weekend, and it was just crazy. I mean, it was a huge, huge game back then. I tell people now, like fast pitch softball, like you played men's fast pitch softball, but I mean, it was just huge. That's just the way it was.
Yeah. And where does that end? Like, obviously, enormous amounts of talent on your men's fast pitch softball league. Where could have that led to? I mean, I'm not aware of an Olympic team or anything of that nature, but does it one of those things where it just suddenly kind of comes to an end and there's kind of not a next step?
I think it just kind of started to die out. I mean, we used to play in Sioux City, Iowa all the time, and they would fly guys in from New Zealand, pitchers, and literally, they'd contract them for X amount of tournaments, and they would pay them like $35,000, $40,000 for one summer just to come in and pitch fast pitch softball. Yeah. I mean, Bill Boyer, I remember him. He was a great player from Seattle, Washington. They used to fly him into Sioux City, Iowa, and they were called the Penn Corps or the Sioux City Sioux. They had legit, world championship teams, and half their team was from around the United States. They just flew them in for the weekends to play.
Wow.
That's insane to hear.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
people don't understand when I try to explain to them how big it was. I mean, we played the World Tournament in Sioux City, Iowa, and there would literally be 8,000-9,000 fans at the game.
Wow.
And they had bleachers all around the whole stadium, and I mean, it was insane.
Yep. But nobody from Minnesota outside of your little pocket.
Correct.
Basically,
Yeah. It was basically the whole southern half. Mankato had some really, really good teams. Happy Chef out of Mankato, and basically the southern half cut off was basically it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So what lands you in Buffalo?
So, long story short, well, I guess it probably won't be short, but
right,
Jason Hegna, my roommate from college, he had moved out here in 2006, I think it was, and my kids were little. We were living in Excelsior at the time, and me and my wife took our kids to, I think it was Minnetonka versus, I can't remember who they were playing. It was like number 1 versus number 3 in the state in high school basketball. So let's just go check out this game. And this is kind of sad, but we went to the game, and there's probably 350, 400 people at the game. And sports has been a huge part of my family, all of my brothers, everything. And it was almost one of those things that I looked at my wife, Courtney, I'm like, I don't know if I can have my kids go to a high school where literally like, this is just not that important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just, Hegna says, hey, and I grew up on the farm, so it's kind of like I want to get out and I want to have some space, but I also want to be close enough to the cities. So we came out and looked at some different places, and that's just kind of how we ended up here.
Yeah. And you have some, there was also some personal ties to Buffalo at the time, too. Get into that. Maybe some former guests on the Buffalo Community Podcast.
Well, so Nick Gaida, we played together fast pitch softball way back in the day, the mid to early 90s. I got picked up from a team out of Fargo, Kegel Side Knights or whatever, and we went to a 23 and under national tournament out in Wisconsin, and he happened to be on my team.
Okay.
So at the time when we moved here, I actually didn't know Gaida was here.
Oh,
so
sure.
we ended up here, and lo and behold, we're at the activity center. My kids are doing the Bison hoops, little kids
sure.
basketball, and everybody knows Mr. Lubin is just straightforward. So he sees me. Never met him in my life.
Yeah.
He walks up to me. He's like, "Hey Todd, Matt Lubin, blah blah blah." He says, "Think you want to play some slow pitch softball with us?"
Yeah.
I literally looked at him like, I don't know this guy. Whatever.
Right.
Long story short, I think we exchanged phone numbers. I said, "Hey, it'd be a great way to meet some people." Well. Lo and behold, Coach Gaida was on the team. Obviously, a bunch of you guys were on the team, and that's just kind of how my old friend group kind of expanded here in Buffalo is just because of playing slow pitch softball.
Sure, yeah. And I would imagine, I guess that kind of leads me into my next question of you've had some pretty blessed and athletic teammates over the years. Present company excluded. Who would you say is like the greatest athlete that you've ever played with?
Besides you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're right there. Probably just the most gifted athlete. A softball side would probably maybe Randy Moss, I guess. Yeah. But you're close.
Right.
I've seen you run the bases, and just your sheer speed is.
Yeah,
right
we're not talking about me right now.
Oh, I know, but it's hard not to.
No, I know. So Randy Moss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of thought maybe you would say that. As far as his, obviously everybody's seen his athletic ability, but as a teammate, as a person, I think people probably have some pretty different views and perspectives on what kind of guy he is. Yeah. But, what was your experience?
It was one of those things. I got to be really good friends with Randy just because he grew up in Rand, West Virginia, small town. And I'll never forget, it was his rookie year. We're just sitting around the locker room one day, and I just started BSing with him about I grew up on the farm, small town, and next thing you know, we got to be good friends. And he's totally misunderstood. And he'll flat out tell you, like, there's a lot of things that maybe he did, early on that maybe didn't give him a good rapport or, with the public and that stuff. But as a teammate, like, I absolutely loved everything about him. Great guy. What you got to see on Sundays was such a small glimpse of what you got in practice every single day.
Right.
It made it look – never seen a guy make it look so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you stay in touch with any of your NFL friends?
Oh, yeah, here and there. I guess it probably gets farther between here and there, but, we still text back and forth all the time. Last summer, he was in town doing his big fishing tournament, and me and Scott Studwell ended up winning the fishing tournament.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
So, you're just throwing up wins left and right.
I know,
no matter what you do.
You got some home field advantage there,
That's
too.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Awesome. you moved to Buffalo again, and we're jumping all over the place, but that does lead into you becoming the head football coach of the Buffalo Bison football team. That was a fun era of Bison football to watch and follow. Probably more high-level talent, and obviously we have a history of sending kids to Division I schools, but there's just a period of time there where we were sending kids all over the country and playing high-level football.
Yeah, it was a fun time. I mean, I was very, very blessed to have a lot of great coaches with me that helped develop kids along the way. But I think in my 6 years of being a head coach, we sent 40-plus kids to college to play football, which is something I'm always proud of. And obviously we didn't have as many wins as I wanted. You win every game, but I feel like on Friday nights we definitely put a product on the field that the fans were entertained by.
Yep.
And it was definitely a fun time in my life.
Awesome.
Your son put up a lot of numbers. I have one question. What was it? 88 to what was the
80 to 70.
80 to 70. Where's the defense? I specifically wanted to ask you that and put a person in between you and I.
We'll maybe leave that there. I just remember, at that time, my defense coordinator, the next morning, his dad had called him, and he was from Ohio. And his dad called him, and he said, boy, that was a tough-fought game last night. And he was like, well, what do you mean? He says, well, it said the score was 8-7. Oh. And he's like, no, the score was 80 to 70. And he said, well, why do you still have a job? No, it was me and
you see it in college all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
I think it was just the perfect storm. I mean, it was one of those things where they just scored every time, and we scored every time except for one time we had to punt and got punt blocked, and they got the lead, and it was just back and forth and back and forth. Me and Coach Hamilton got to be really good friends with him in Elk River, and we joke about it all the time, and we talk and text back and forth. He's just like, I've never experienced a game like that. My buddy who was from St. Michael was driving home from watching one of his relatives playing, I think, Daskell Cato or something. And he said he drove by the field, and he's like, the lights are still on. So I glanced over, and he goes, it was 10:15, I think it was, at night. And he goes, they looked, and he goes, wait, the third quarter's just ending. So he said he pulled in and watched the fourth quarter, and it was just, I'll never experience anything like that again.
Yeah. Wow. So, Aiden, playing college, tell us a little bit more about your family. And, again, athletics, Aiden, yourself, Courtney, Avery.
Yeah, sports has always been a huge part of our life. I mean, obviously, Courtney played volleyball in college, and, my daughter, Avery, played volleyball in high school. It's always been a huge part of our life. And I think sports kind of molds you into the person you are. I mean, as hard as it is, it's times you got to get up. Maybe you're sore. You don't want to go to practice. It's just, I would say football is the ultimate molder of people. It's not basketball. Like I always said, football teaches you because you have to have 11 guys doing the right thing at all the times. Basketball, you can have 4 guys go stand in the corner, and the guy with the ball dribbles between his legs 3 times, goes around his back, shoots a fadeaway 23-footer, and hits net, and everybody's like, that was a great play. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. So, no, I've been blessed. Got a great family. Got 2 older brothers with great family. My mom and dad. I mean, sports is in our family. That's all we've ever known, and that's all we do.
Awesome. And how are you keeping busy now? Obviously, you got some travel and watching Aiden compete and play, but that's only the fall, basically. What keeps you busy now?
So right now I do quarterback training at actually our old Vikings practice facility in Eden Prairie. Monday through Thursday from 2 in the afternoon until 7 at night. I train high school quarterbacks, and then I also coach a 7-on-7 team that we travel around. We were in Dallas in February, and then we have a few more tournaments. But, we travel around to do that. So I have practice on Saturdays from 12 to 3, and then we have practice on Sundays from 2 till 5. So definitely staying busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Putting some miles on the vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. Too much. Yeah.
Walking into that facility, Winter Park, I'm sure you're used to it now, but to be walking in not as a player, now as a coach, some memories and some feelings come back.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's weird being in there. I mean, they've obviously Lifetime took it over, and then they revamped the whole place. But when I walk in, it's still the locker room where the lobby is now. So it's different. It's fun to be back there. Obviously, when you're there, it's not quite as the same as TCO. Their new practice facility is just insane compared to it. You know what I mean? But it's fun being back there.
You look at TCO, and then you look at Winter Park, and it's hard to believe that Winter Park was ever a facility for professional football players.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that was right at it was just right at the end. I mean, you went to all these other places in the NFL, and just they had state of the art facilities, and you can say what you want. That helps bring free agents in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys that want to play there and guys that want to be a part of that, because you spend 8 Saturdays or 9 Saturdays or Sundays, sorry, at the game place, and now you spend all the rest of your time at the practice facility.
We covered a lot of ground. We've been all over the place with you. I think at this point we probably could wrap it up and say thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And for being part of the podcast. And
awesome. Well, appreciate you guys having me in, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much. For the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Mark Benzer.
I'm Tyler Reese.
And I'm Todd Bouman.
Thanks for listening to the Buffalo Community Podcast, produced by Edlin Media. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts.